On today's show, well, that was a disaster.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, and you're making another edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, as you do every single day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube as well. And if you're watching right now, please do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. In today's episode, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, the code is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Cleveland Cavaliers lose to the Houston Rockets 117-100 in a game that, quite frankly, was not as close as that final score would indicate. We'll talk about what went wrong in this game and why I think that the offense is to blame, because this is a game where defensively, were the Cavs great? No, absolutely not. But truthfully, like for parts of it, I'm not sure that the best defense in the world would have mattered, particularly in the first half. Like Kevin Durant in the first half was 8 of 10 and had 23 points, and he was really, really awesome. And I thought that some of those possessions, some of those contests were actually really, really good. And Kevin Durant was just one of the best scorers ever, and he looked like it in the first half. And like you kind of, to a certain point, have to live with that. So it's hard for me to look at this in a game where, yeah, the Cavs gave up 117 points, and like that's not great, but the Rockets, when they were playing hard, because they didn't play hard in that fourth quarter, and like give the young guys for the Cavs credit. I thought Jalen Tyson was like the lone bright spot, and I thought Tyrese Proctor played well in the fourth quarter. Thomas Bryant did some nice things in the fourth quarter, but ultimately, like that stuff did not matter. It's not necessarily, no slight to those guys. It's not worth spending a lot of time on today. So that's going to do it for that part of the show. But the Cavs held Houston under 35 points in the first three quarters, in every quarter. The problem is the Cavs didn't even score 25 points in a quarter when their starters were playing. They were losing after the first quarter 32-24. And even within the first few minutes, when it was a close game, and like the Cavs led for a good chunk of the first half of the first quarter. I think they led for like 3.5 minutes in the first 6 minutes of the first quarter or whatever. But even then, it's like everything the Cavs need to do is really challenging for them. Trying to get to the spots where they wanted to get to offensively was really tough for them. They weren't shooting the basketball great. Like Sam Merrill made his first three of the night, and Sam, I thought, played okay. Darius Garland made a three-pointer early. Like he had 5 quick points. But it's like none of that stuff seemed like it was easily generated. And then even the shots the Cavs were getting that were easily generated, they were missing. They didn't shoot the ball very well in this game. And like, that's going to happen. There were bigger issues to me than just, they missed shots. Like that's not what this game was about. This game was about the Cavs really struggling, I thought, with the physicality that Houston played with defensively, where the Cavs couldn't get to where they wanted to get to on the floor. They turned the ball over far too frequently. They finished with 14 turnovers. 8 of those turnovers were in the first quarter. And that's really where this was lost. And a big part of the reason why I look at this and just say it's hard for me to pin this on the defense is it's really hard to defend off of turnovers. When you turn the ball over as frequently as the Cavs did early on, it's a challenge. Houston scored 32 points in that first quarter. 13 of them came off of turnovers. That's a really, really tough spot to put your defense in. So I look at this game and just say it was an offensive problem. Like this was a game in which the Cavs needed to be so much better than they were offensively. And I think part of that is physicality. Like they need to play with force in a way that this team has really struggled to do a lot this year. They've not been a team that's been able to impose their style of basketball on opponents all that often. And this was a game where I thought it was one of the worst instances of it. And again, it's only a 17-point loss, but they were down at times by 31 points. Like this was a team that was so far outclassed by the Houston Rockets in this game that I do think it makes you question, okay, well, what about this past week was real? Because I do think prior to the game against Houston, the Cavs took some serious steps in the right direction. And as I have said so frequently this year, all of these things are about the Cavs, and it's not about the opponents. Maybe part of this game was about the opponent on Saturday because of how good Kevin Durant was in that first half. But the game against Charlotte on Monday, the game against New Orleans on Tuesday, like those were games that it didn't matter who the Cavs were playing. Like the Cavs just looked focused. They looked physical. They looked really good in all the things that they were doing. And even on Christmas Day, a game they lost, they looked focused for most of it. Now, that focus maybe wavered at times down the stretch, and they didn't close that game. And that's why this loss hurts a little bit more for the Cavs than I think it would have had they won on Christmas Day. Because if they would have beat the Knicks on Christmas, you could kind of just say, oh, well, you know what? They won on Christmas. This is a tough matchup. It is what it is. They've still won 3 out of 4, but instead that's not the case anymore. But even in that game against the Knicks, you could come away from it saying, you know what? They lost this game, but they still did a lot of really good things. Like they still, I think you could say, had a reason for optimism. And I was in the locker room in New York after that game in New York on Christmas. And that was, you know, a team that was certainly disappointed and frustrated that they didn't finish the job against the Knicks, that they ended up blowing a 17-point lead. Like they were certainly upset about that, and they should have been. But they also were able to keep the bigger picture in mind and say, well, this still feels like a step in the right direction. Because I do look at that, and I think that game against the Knicks, had it been played 10 days ago, would have probably been a 25-point loss. But then when Saturday rolls around and the Cavs get absolutely throttled the way they did against Houston, I think it makes you rethink what happened earlier this week. Like, how do the Cavs, who looked like they had finally emerged from their just month-long malaise of basketball, where they didn't play with a lot of effort, and I did not think the effort level was where it needed to be. I did not think this was a team that played hard enough on Saturday night against the Rockets. And yes, missing shots is certainly part of it. Like if the Cavs had shot the ball better from beyond the arc in the first quarter alone, they were 2 of 11 from deep. Sam made one and Darius made one. If they would have shot the ball better from deep, would the effort have been better? Probably. Would that have been enough? No, like that doesn't make up for them not taking care of the basketball early on in this game. It doesn't make up for the fact that they got crushed on the boards overall. And certainly at more times than others, like the third quarter, the Cavs were out rebounded 19-8. Houston had 8 offensive rebounds to the Cavs, 8 total rebounds in the third quarter. And like in the first half, I didn't think that was necessarily the biggest issue. Like, yeah, the Rockets had 7 offensive rebounds in the first half, but they didn't have a single second chance point. So you look at that and say, okay, maybe that is a bit of a dodged bullet, if you will. But it was hard for me at halftime to say, you know what, the Cavs are really losing this game because they're losing the battle on the glass. Like, no, it was the turnovers. And then when things got worse, which they did get worse, the third quarter was easily the worst quarter they played in this game on Saturday. It was because of that problem rearing its ugly head again. Like this has just been such a consistent theme for not only this Cavs team, but Cavs teams of years past too. And I also, the one thing too from Thursday, where the Cavs have talked about not being a great rebounding team until it matters, because give them credit, in the postseason last year, they did a good job on the glass against Miami. They did a good job on the glass against Indiana. But it's also those 2 teams were 2 of the 5 worst offensive rebounding teams last year. Like context in that matters. The Cavs did a good job defensive rebounding in the playoffs last year because they played teams that didn't have an interest in trying to grab offensive rebounds. That has to be part of that. Like that context matters. And if you just think, oh no, this is something that is easily cleaned up when the playoffs arrived because we've done it before, I think you're kidding yourself by that. Because then we look and see, okay, what happens in the fourth quarter when the Knicks really try and grab offensive rebounds? What happens in the third quarter of Saturday's game when the Rockets really do crash the glass? Like it turns into a nightmare for the Cavs. The blueprint right now is out on how to fix this, or on how to beat this team. Like you have to be physical at the point of the attack. And I do think the Rockets were that. Now, I did find it funny that the Cavs were called for, at least in the first 3 quarters. I don't know what the final number was. It doesn't necessarily matter. The Cavs were called for more fouls and certainly sent the Rockets to the free throw line far more frequently. So I don't know that the physicality was like as bad as it looked, because the Cavs were fouling, like, and part of that was fouling Steven Adams and trying to send him to the line when he had the ball near the basket too. But I look at this and just say, this feels like it was a step backwards for the Cavs on a week where there was a lot to be positive about. I think there was a lot to be optimistic about. This feels like it was just a step in the wrong direction for the first time in about 10 days. And how the Cavs respond to this will obviously be a very interesting thing and something that's going to kind of define their season. But Kenny Atkinson even said during the or afterwards, watching his press conference on FanDuel Sports Network, felt like they lost this game in the first quarter. And watching at home, it absolutely felt like they lost this game in the first quarter. You could watch that first quarter, even though early in the second quarter, I believe they got it within 2 points. It never felt like, yeah, the Cavs have a chance in this game. And yeah, like that's just kind of where this basketball team feels like it's at right now. And the thing is, and I want to talk about this more on tomorrow's show. This is just going to be a 2-segment show because if we're being real, this type of effort from the Cavs does not denote a third segment of the show on the weekend. So I'll talk about this more on Monday, but it feels like a very important stretch for the Cavs is upcoming. Like it already started and the Cavs are 0-2 in it, but it feels like a season defining stretch for the Cavs is approaching with what their schedule has on the horizon, because it's not something that the Cavs can survive doing. Like they need to be a better basketball team than what they have been so far. And I just think ultimately we are going to learn a lot about the Cavs coming up. I think we've learned a lot about the Cavs that hasn't necessarily been really good stuff so far, but the Cavs are in this position because they screwed around a bunch. And we'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. The season is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out, but let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert, and you need it now. The late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure that you show up prepared. Snacks, cups, even a phone charger for the friend who's always at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Today's show also brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. And that is where Game Time comes in. Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app, straightforward and easy. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. Prices include fees up front, one of my favorite features because I don't want to be surprised at the very last minute with what something's going to cost. Plus, they've got features like zone deals that help to unlock great seats at even better value. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. Thank you again for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. Please make sure you hit the thumbs up button as we continue to roll along here. And I think the reason why this loss is so troubling for the Cavs is not because of this loss in itself. Like, yeah, the Cavs had a clunker. They didn't play with the effort they needed to. They did a lot of things poorly. They didn't shoot the ball well. Like, all of those things are going to happen over the course of an 82-game season. It just is what it is. And that is going to happen for some of the best teams in basketball. It's going to happen for some of the worst teams in basketball. The frequency in which it happens is something that kind of defines who you are. And we saw this last year with this Cavs team that won 64 games. Like, we saw them go through the season where they would have these clunkers at times, right? Like, they lost a game to Oklahoma City where they were down by 40 plus. They lost a couple of games. They lost a couple of games to Atlanta where they just didn't have it. And that's going to happen from time to time in the NBA. And it is something that nobody wants to hear, but it does happen. And for the Cavs, you could look at this and just say, well, it was that. And the problem with that is the Cavs have lost the ability to have that, because at a certain point, it becomes who you are. So far this season, this Cavs team has been a team that doesn't play with the right effort. This is a Cavs team that doesn't do the little things well. This is a Cavs team that, aside from these past 3 games they played, not including Saturday, hasn't shot the basketball all that frequently. And while some of those things are correctable, like I do expect the Cavs to be a much better 3-point shooting team than the team they have been to date this season, I think that will get to the right level. But the effort is inexcusable. Like, the effort in this game, I thought, was inexcusably low for the Cavs. I think their inability or lack of desire to do the little things is inexcusable for the Cavs. And the reason why this loss actually stings the way that it should, if you're a Cavs fan, is because of all the other games this has happened in. Like, had the Cavs looked good and beat the Bulls the 2 times they played a couple weeks ago, if they had beaten the skeleton crew of the Golden State Warriors when they played, had they won that game against Portland, against Boston, where they just didn't try very hard in those 2 games, had they even looked good in the win they had against Washington, if they would have beat Charlotte in that overtime loss, like if the Cavs would have taken care of business in a lot of the games that they've played so far this year, where they have just not done all of these things, because you can do the things the Cavs did tonight and almost win games. This was different from those games in the fact that it was never close, that the Cavs just got throttled, but it kind of was the same performance. Like, if the Cavs play like this against Charlotte, I don't know, like, it probably looks like an overtime loss. If the Cavs play like this against Washington, it probably looks like a close win against a bad team. If the Cavs play like this against Chicago, it's probably a double-digit loss. Oh, wait, all of those things just happened because the Cavs have played like this far too frequently. At a certain point, this game stops becoming just another stinker, and it starts becoming something where that's actually just who you are. And either the Cavs are there or they're getting dangerously close to being there. And we are going to, as I said, learn a lot about this Cavs team coming up, good or bad. And that's why I think this upcoming stretch is a season-defining stretch for the Cavs. And I'll go more in depth on that on tomorrow's show. But go look at their next handful of games, where they play San Antonio on Monday. Then they play Phoenix, who's a good basketball team. Then they play Denver. Then they play Detroit. Like, they have a really tough stretch in the schedule, and they have to find ways to, I mean, you would like to say, just go 500, you'll be fine, but you kind of have to be better than that because of the hole that you've dug yourself so far for the Cavs. And that's a problem. Like, there is a world in which we are waking up at the start of 2026 and the Cavs are a below 500 basketball team. And nobody, not the biggest Cavs hater on the planet, would have thought, yeah, the Cavs are going to be below 500 in January. But that's a very real possibility because of what this Cavs team has done, or I guess more accurately, what they haven't done so far this year, which is play basketball the right way. And that was, I thought, on clear display on Saturday night in Houston. So what has to change with this team? I think there are things Kenny Atkinson can change. I think that he can change some of the lineups that he plays. I think some spots in the rotation, like Lonzo Ball at this point, like, just should not be a rotation player. He has been bad. I thought he was terrible in this game against Houston. DeAndre Hunter needs to be so much better. You can't really pull him out of the rotation, but he's been terrible. Like, you just go up and down and you can say there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. But I have zero reason to believe Kenny Atkinson is on the hot seat, and I don't think he should be on the hot seat either. Like, is all of this his fault? No. Some of it is, not all of it, though. I don't think this team is going to make a trade right now. I have seen enough of Jared Allen, truthfully. Like, I thought he was terrible in this game as well. And I think that, that experience has been enough for me personally, and I think for a lot of fans out there too. But I don't see any of those things happening on the horizon. I think ultimately this is a team that needs to figure it out, because if they don't figure it out, they're going to be, if they're not already, the most disappointing team in franchise history. And that's something to live with, especially in a year that everything was out in front of them. They could have had the greatest year without LeBron this franchise has ever had. And instead, they're in danger of being below 500 when the calendar flips to January. And that kind of is where the Cavs are at right now. And I think that this game on Saturday night against the Houston Rockets was a very good microcosm for that. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Cavs. I will have a full edition of Locked On Cavs tomorrow, wherever you get your podcast. It's Apple, that's Spotify, that is anywhere else. But as we get out of here, please make sure you go check out the Locked On Cavs Everydayer Club. If you need a last-minute holiday gift, maybe you missed it, right? Holiday was this week. Maybe you forgot to get something for that Cavs fan in your life. Sign them up for the Locked On Cavs Everydayer Club. It's an ad-free episode of this show, plus exclusive Discord server access and so much more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the link in the episode description or wherever you get your podcast. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple. All the places will have the link in the show description. So thank you for hanging out with me today right here on Locked On Cavs. I will be back tomorrow, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. And as we get out of here, please hit the thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I will talk to you later about the Cleveland Cavaliers.